Welcome to the InStory Show. I'm Devorah Spilman, your host, and our theme this season is what does it mean to expand into a new story? And how do you come out of hiding and dare to be seen for who you really are by saying yes to your soul and telling your story? So today I'm thrilled to welcome InStory expert Jennifer Grossman. Hi, Jennifer.
Hello, Devorah. How are you?
Wonderful. So glad you're here. I'm going to read a little bit about Jennifer and then we will dive in. Jennifer Grossman is a senior learning consultant at a multinational company. She is also a certified life coach. She's passionate about bringing her life experiences into her work to deepen connection in her professional role. And we're excited because it's really cool to see the intersection between InStory and an international corporation, company. So, but first, start like everybody does and tell us, what does expanding into a new story mean to you?
Yeah, this is really personal to me. And in fact, I'm gonna I'm gonna explain it as it's simply learning to go within, to really get heart-centered, to use my intuition, to be soul directed in everything that I do. And the feeling that I get from that, not only is it expansion, but it is freedom. It is allowing me to be my authentic self.
Hmm. I completely love this so much. And what's crazy in a way, Jennifer and everybody else, is this shouldn't be expanding into a new story. This should be how humans just are. But
That is
but we've been
absolutely
pushed
true.
out of it, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, I feel like we're expanding into a new story that's like our ancient old natural story in some way.
I feel that way as well. I think one of the things that going within helps me do is remember who that Jennifer is, that little girl, going back to that time when I was so full of joy and curiosity and adventure and just laughter and fun before life took pot shots at me. And it's returning back to that state that of living and looking at life completely differently as experiences where I like, and if I like them, let me do more of them, and if I don't like them, then let me do less or not do them at all. Right.
Right. It really is this natural state until we get hurt and have to comply and it's trained out of us. I particularly love the fact that you are still in a company and you are bringing this way of seeing and being and thinking into that world. So tell us a little bit of what I like to call your in-story story, because
Mhm.
not people think, oh, if you're going to go do some spiritual program, you have to be an entrepreneur or a healer or all, but honestly, it is so significant when people like you are bringing this deeper perspective into a world that really needs it. So tell us a little bit about your whole story with in-story and how that's affected your work.
I'd love to. Well, I think that you're so right when, for example, became certified as a life coach, and the predominant thought was go build your business. And I knew that wasn't what I wanted to do. And I kept fighting it and fighting it. And it is through the in story process that I truly gave myself permission to bring what I learned, from that experience and all the other experiences I've had into my corporate role. I mean, when I first started several decades ago in the corporate world, right, it was all about logic. It was a very masculine energy to that environment. And way back then, it was, work versus personal, and the two should not mix at all. And so work life balance was simply, okay, don't work 80 hours a week, maybe only work 60 and spend some time with your family. That was it. And where I'm, I have the freedom now, where I'm moving into is saying, no, there is no distinction between these two worlds. I mean, think about it, like how, how things occur at home, like, your experiences at home, they affect how you come into work and perform your job. And the things that happen at work, then, conversely, will impact how do you relate to your family and your friends and just your personal life. So you can't go ahead and separate the two. And so InStory, there's a couple of things that it did. Number one, uh, I grew in confidence. Like I've been working on this client retention initiative. And that was about, like, how do you retain your customers? Like, and I had some great success in the first couple of trainings that I developed and shared with the organization. I felt an inner knowing that I needed to move into the area about relationships. And when you're talking about relationships, you're talking about connection. And when you're talking about connection, you've got to talk about emotions and feelings. Whoa, okay, like that is not done in the corporate world, or at least it hasn't been until very recently. We're starting to see that creep in. And well, I had an opportunity in 2024 before we were heading into our peak season to go ahead and create this training. And I wasn't as confident then. And so I didn't do it. I just kind of said, well, we're too busy. There's this and there's that. And at the end of that time period, I felt sad. I felt disappointed and I had regret. And I realized that I did not want to experience that ever again. That I knew that what was coming from me was something so important. It is the way that I could serve at my highest capacity to the people that I work with on a much broader perspective. And in story, when you would tell us what moves you moves your tribe, okay, got it. Like, and you would share with us trust. Trust what you get. And over and over and over again through the processes, I would get confirmation. It's like, yes, go do it. You can trust this, move forward with this. And so I'm very blessed in my corporate role. I have built an incredible team around me. And so these are people where even if they don't quite understand where I wanted to go with this, they said, we trust you, go do it. And with the help of a team, instead of feeling the weight of having to develop this pretty radical shift on my own, I utilized my team to help me to continue to make sure that where I wanted to go, what was where we would go, but it would fit into the corporate world. It'd be more relatable from that perspective. And so instead of having the attitude of I'll try and fit it in, this time around, this past year, I said, no, we're going to do it. And I'm going to fit everything else around it. And that's what I did. Now, I did have to compromise, meaning I couldn't deliver it to the entire organization. We simply didn't have enough room in our training calendar to do that. But I got half of the organization done. And I took it from the perspective of, okay, what moves me will move my tribe. This is really different. So for some people, it will not resonate at all. For other people, I'm just sprinkling seeds to let them grow. And for others, what this training would be to nourish them on the path that they're already growing on. And so,
What was the name of your
yeah,
training? Because you didn't tell us so that we
yeah,
get a sense of it.
it's called human connection and being your best self.
Right. Okay, great. I just wanted you to
Yeah.
say that because it's so like significant in the corporate world
Yeah.
that that's what your training is called. Like, oh my God.
Yeah. And, one of the things that I absolutely loved about that training is there's a small little section in it. And we're talking about feelings and emotions. And, I was telling them the story of, you know, when I first had to go to corporate events, I would always be the person that would, you know, pile their plate full of food so like I could spend my time eating and not having to talk to other people. And many of them, I watched their faces. They would look at me like, "What? That's not Jennifer at all. It's not the Jennifer now, but that was the Jennifer back then." I was afraid of connecting with people, and so all the different things that I have done to help me become and deliver and be my best self are the things that I bring into my role now. And they know a much different person. And so I said to them, now when I go to these events, I am so excited to connect with people and talk to them. I don't want the food, I want to connect with you. And yeah, it's really different. And I had to talk about the fact that, emotions are okay. There's nothing wrong with our emotions. There's nothing wrong to bringing our emotions into the work environment. That's part of who we are and being our authentic selves. And it was just really sharing that we need to give ourselves permission to be ourselves, including acknowledging our emotions, whether it's at work or at home, anywhere, all throughout our lives. That is so powerful when we start doing that.
So what do you think helped you kind of way back then become better at connecting? Like what helped you to do
It,
that?
it wasn't any one thing, it was a consistent effort of
Mhm.
many things. For example, remaining really open to different perspectives.
Mhm.
Sometimes you hear things, you're like, stop, I don't want to hear anymore. And the moment that you feel that, there's something there. Well, it doesn't mean that you have to dive into that right away. You can take that emotion, that reaction, you can kind of put it on the shelf, you can see it. And when you feel ready, you can take it down and you can start looking at it and examining it a little bit further. There's things like being just very aware of how am I feeling, checking in with my emotions on a regular basis. There's so many different things, non-judgment, not judging others and not judging myself. And it's probably not judging myself that was and still continues to be the hardest one for me to overcome. I don't know if we'll ever get away from that, but we can certainly try. But the awareness comes in is at the moment that I start recognizing that I'm doing that, I call myself on it.
Yeah.
And so it's so many small little things done consistently over a period of time that really changed, you know, how I was responding, thoughtfully responding, not reacting to things. And it allowed me to get in touch with, my heart and
Mhm.
bring that heart, that love out into the world and express it in whatever way I felt was appropriate to express it. Sometimes we think of, loving, we think of the traditional loving someone. So that's a little hard to do in a corporate world. Well, my act of loving and serving was to bring that human connection and be your best self training to the associates that I support.
And did you bring in some of, when you said expanding into a new story is that going inner to that inner place and that kind of trust and like, the soul story course and the in story way is all about that going into that more state of connected flow and trusting that. I want you to talk about that part of yourself and how much of that have you been able to bring in to your training?
Well, funny that you should ask. I brought a lot of it in, but I didn't necessarily bring it from, let's say, a more soul perspective. It was there, but I put it in a work framework so that more of the associates could relate to it.
Mhm.
So, I covered like, being your best self. What does that mean? Well, it means creating a best self toolbox. right? So I want you to think about a handyman, right? They don't just have one wrench, one screwdriver, one drill bit. They have many, right? They take one out, they try it, and if it doesn't work for that circumstance, they'll put it back in and they'll try another one. And that's what a self-care toolkit is all about for us. It could be like the standard things that we think of. It could be meditation, it could be doing movements, yoga, tai chi, qigong, it could be journaling, all of those are examples. Breath work, big one. But the coolest thing is, like, this is your self-care toolbox. You can make it your own. So, if one breath work practice doesn't work out, try another one. Stack different types of tools and processes that you use. And so that's what I covered. I actually, not only delivered, examples of what type of self-care tools people could utilize, but we did it. I said, let's go ahead and practice, my favorite breath work. Uh, I don't know
Do you want to
exactly.
lead your favorite breath work for us right
I
now?
do. I
Okay,
do.
let's
I
do it.
absolutely. I think it's called 426, but in my mind, I call it my ocean breath work. And the
Mm,
reason why is that I imagine myself standing on the seashore and watching the waves gently come up to the shore. And when they crest, it's like they pause right before they go back down. So that's the visualization that I have when I do this breath work. So if you want to do it with me, just close your eyes,
perfect. Okay.
and I'm going to keep my eyes open. But I want you to start by taking 2 deep breaths. Just breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in again and breathe out. And imagine yourself, you're standing on that seashore. You hear the waves. They gently come onto the shore. You see them crest, and then you see them recede. And we're going to do our breath work as we follow the waves of the ocean. So as the waves come in, we're going to breathe for 4. As they crest, we're going to hold for 2. And as they recede, we're going to exhale for 6. So here we go. Breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4. The waves crest. Hold, 1, 2. And the waves recede. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Waves go in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold as they crest. 1, 2. Waves recede. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. When you're done, take a deep breath and open your eyes. How do you feel, Devorah?
What? No, I'm kidding. Right, it would
And
just start to take me out of like the details of life, into just that. It's like a letting go of whatever I'm holding up. And it just makes me feel more relaxed, more present in the moment.
yeah, and think about when you're at work, and especially if you have a job where you're taking a lot of customer phone calls. I mean, that can get really intense. And every now and then, you need to take a break. You need to release all the emotions that someone is sharing with you that are not yours. You release them and you get back into that still present moment. And
Mhm.
that allows you the opportunity to bring your best self into the next call that you're going to take. That's just
Yeah.
one tool that I led people through. And I didn't even get to all my truly favorite ones. I kind of snuck them in there in different ways, but they're not very overt. But some of the my favorite tools are about emotional self-regulation. So kind of like what we were doing with the breathing and getting yourself to very present. and releasing emotions. And the other side of that is simply acknowledging that. So remember when I said, stop, don't go any further when you're feeling that, when you're feeling intense anger, when you're feeling intense sadness, right? It can be really overwhelming to you, as well as if you don't release that, they stay stuck in the body. That's no good. So, finding ways to be able to release those emotions from the body is so important. And in fact, like it's one of my favorite tools that I have, that I like to use a lot. And I don't know if you want to go there now, but that's actually a tool in my free gift. I talk about
Well, tell us,
how I
tell us
actually,
this one that's one of your favorites, and then you'll tell
yeah,
us about the
yeah.
whole free gift.
It's it's simply this. It's saying this. I feel this way, anger, emotion, frustration, because I must in this moment.
Oh,
I feel anger because I must in this moment. I feel anger because I must in this moment. I feel anger because I must in this moment. In this moment is critical, because once the moment has passed, you have the opportunity to choose and shift to feeling something else.
mhm.
Maybe you can bring in some gratitude. Hey, I am thankful for this, and I'm thankful for that, and I'm thankful for that. And you can't be in anger and gratitude at the same time. You simply can't. And over time and with experience, you can move beyond gratitude. Maybe you can even shift yourself back into some state of happiness or joy. I
Right.
feel this emotion because I must in this moment.
That's really profound. Sometimes the simplest things are so profound because so often people say, "I must not feel this feeling,"
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Which then holds it stuck, right?
That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
That's
And
really
you think about customer service, right? Like there are days when the customers are not very happy. So here's the thing, like if you hold on to that frustration, that anger, right? Who are you going to share that with next? Well, the next person who calls you,
right.
or if you're feeling that way at the end of your workday and you go home to your family, who gets to experience that? Your family.
Right.
And you don't want that to happen. And that is when, like not, releasing that type of emotion, that's not going to make for good connections.
The other thing I noticed, we had a woman at her house yesterday, works in like in a serving food to senior setting, and one of them, he's just a little off, and he's always demanding and rude and thoughtless. Like, and she said it made her so mad, and then she felt bad about herself that she
Mm,
felt that feeling. And what I think is so brilliant about saying, in this moment, I must feel this. It's like, then you're not trashing yourself for feeling it. You're simply acknowledging it, witnessing it, that there was a justifiable reason for you to feel it. And I think that just takes the charge out of it. It's such a, I don't know, so really cool.
well, you got it exactly. And that is, the practice of that type of self, regulation of my emotions is one of the things that has really impacted my ability to connect with others for the better. And it's been amazing. Um, and it's just that acknowledgement, means that I can be free to choose, right? Everybody loves the freedom to choose. I'm not stuck in anything. And, if I'm authentically, justifiably angry, then I can acknowledge that. And I could do that without self-judgment. Oftentimes we're told, oh, we shouldn't feel this way or that way. And the problem with that is, just like you want to be acknowledged, so do your emotions. And if you do not release them, then they are going to come out in ways that you would not want them to come out. And at work, that can have very significant consequences. I mean, it can have consequences in your personal relationship, but if you do it at work, you might not have that work anymore, right? So, these are all things that, this is why I felt so moved to bring this type of training to our associates. Let's face it, all right? Like, there's been a lot of change in the world in these last year or two, a lot of change. And you add that to going into a peak work season, people are already stressed.
Mm-hmm.
How can like I was thinking, how can I help them by doing small little things and sharing that with them? And so that they can just have a much better experience. They don't have to feel constricted so much.
Really great. All right. So that leads perfectly into telling people about the free gift you made for everybody watching the
Yes.
show that you don't have to be in her company.
Yes, yes, yes. So it's just a PDF. It's called Build Your Own Self-Care Toolkit. Uh, and I put in 4 of my favorite tools, processes that I've been using over the years. These are the ones that are probably the most profound, impactful to my growth development, to allowing me to develop my confidence in myself and to continue to bring this type of training to the people that I work with. So I hope that you all enjoy them. I'd say give them a try. Be consistent as with anything, right? It's not a one and done. You need to practice that and really, like, hey, okay, you got angry and you didn't self-regulate. Oh, well, okay, there you go. There's awareness. The next time, give it a go. And you might notice that over time, as you utilize these tools, you have more and more awareness.
Mhm.
So I think, like, the last thing I would probably want to say about that is I've just given you some suggestions that when it comes to tools, you got to make them your own. All right. I can share with you one way. You can go back and look at the source and learn how they were originally taught. But never be afraid to make something your own, to find your way. And that is actually the InStory way, is discovering how to do it, or that aligns to your soul, and then never be afraid to share that.
So good. I'm so glad you said that because I always, you're such a good student. I'm always saying, what's the in-story way? Finally doing it your
Your
way.
way.
So,
Yes.
like, so perfect. All right. Well, leave us with one or two more last thoughts before we wrap up.
Wow. Okay. Well, I thought I did, but let me give you some more.
I know, but I always like
There we
one
go.
more, you
Okay.
know.
Yeah. So I want to say that, I called this segment "Being Still is Not Static." So what do I mean by that? I want to say that when you go in, all right, you're connected to your heart centeredness, your intuition, your soul directed. That is anything but static. You don't realize how much movement that you will experience along your pathway. Like, it's so much more than what you expect, and it's actually so much better.
Oh, so good. I forgot to ask you about that. That was so perfect. And because it's so contrary to when people say you have to look busy when you're at your job. So you're modeling this other way of moving, which is goes all the way back to what is expanding into a new story mean to you. So it's so encouraging, I think, Jennifer, to everybody to see people bringing this deeper perspective into all these different domains. So thank you so much. Really awesome.
It's been my pleasure, and thank you for inviting me to do this. I so appreciate it. I've had so much fun chatting with you today. And if anyone is interested in getting connected with me, I do have an email address on my free gift. I don't do a lot of social media at this time because I'm very focused on what I'm doing and bringing things forth in my current professional role. But if you want to get connected with me, send me an email. I'd love to get connected with you as well.
Awesome. And really take it to heart. Get the free gift. Try to practice some and let Jennifer know what you did and what worked because it would be fun. It's fun to hear that from each other. So, as always, saying farewell, remember to go out in the world, share your story, live your purpose, and be a blessing. Bye, folks.